5 minutes to the gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Buddy Carter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank each of you for being here. And Mr. Chairman, I want to compliment you on this hearing. This is something, obviously, as a father, as a grandfather, I'm very concerned about. With 8 precious grandchildren, leaving them this kind of debt is just irresponsible, and it's something that we need to address, and I'm glad that you're leading the charge on that, Mr. Chairman. $39 trillion, that's hard to even get your arms around. It's hard to imagine. I don't know if I could even write that on paper. $39 trillion, unbelievable. If we reduce our deficit, our federal deficit, to 3% of GDP, and it'll help stabilize our debt burden and ensure our debt growth won't outpace economic growth. But Mr. Couchman, I'm going to start with you. Why is the 3% deficit to GDP ratio a notable goal? If I had to explain this to a constituent, not somebody inside baseball like we are here, but somebody just trying to explain, yes, what would I say in layman's terms?
Right now, the federal government is borrowing 6% of GDP every single year. This would cut that in half, and it would make it below the growth rate of the economy, and so the debt burden would stabilize and then slowly decline. It's going to stabilize too high because that debt drag that we're getting from that high debt burden won't come down until we get it down below 70 or 80%, but it will avoid worse harm from it going further up.
So we could avoid worse harm,
yes, sir,
by doing this. How would our current debt to GDP ratio change if this target was sustained? So it would, as you say, it would just stabilize it.
Yes, sir. In figure 1 of my written testimony, I have some graphs that show this, the baseline debt projections, and then also...
Graphs are good. People like pictures.
Yep, that's right. So in the CBO baseline, it goes up and to dangerous levels. With the 3% deficit to GDP target, it basically flattens out and then starts to decline, very similar to a path to structural primary balance. And of course, if we were to go to full balance, which is what the resolution that informed this hearing talks about, once we've gotten to the 3% deficit target, then it would go down much faster and we'll be able to unleash more of economic growth.
Okay, one of the things that we've been talking about in this administration and for the past year and a half has been the Department of Government Efficiency and the amount of waste, fraud, and abuse that we have. And that's what really irritates people and really irritates our constituents. It's the Government Accountability Office has estimated that the federal government could lose about $500 billion annually due to fraud. Thankfully, we've been trying to address that, and I'd like to think we've made some progress, not enough, but some. What are some of the specific ways that Congress can continue working with agencies and legislate to prevent and reduce fraud and improper payments?
One of the things that you have to be able to do is revisit the programs to figure out which designs are working well for anti-fraud efforts and also for providing the services and benefits that people are expecting, the taxpayers are expecting. But if you don't have a regular opportunity to do that work, especially in a bipartisan way where you can hold hands and jump together and then not fight over it for all time to come, then you're able to redesign the programs in ways that get the incentives right for everybody down the chain, whether it's the federal agencies or state agencies that are often implementing these programs or the beneficiaries themselves. But if you don't have that opportunity, these problems will continue to fester.
When I was in the Georgia State Legislature, one of the things that we discussed was zero-based budgeting, and I'm sure you're familiar with that. Is that doable on a federal budget?
President Jimmy Carter made it a big thing. It took a lot of time and investment. A lot of good information was produced. Congress didn't necessarily have a good opportunity to use it. And an interesting historical fact, President Reagan killed it on the day that I was born. It is something that a number of states...
So it's your fault.
It's my fault, yeah. Okay. I came into being and then poof, it was gone. But there are a number of states that have this in place, and I'm always open to finding out that it does have an impact, but I haven't seen tangible evidence of that yet.
Okay. Ms. McGinnis, really quick, you called a 3% deficit to GDP target realistic enough to be achievable and aggressive enough to reassure markets and lenders that the debt is on a sustainable path. What's the logic behind a 3% deficit? Why not 2? Why not, why 3?
I was thinking about your question of how you answer this in a layman's terms. And I was thinking it's kind of how you eat an elephant, right? It's one bite at a time.
Right.
We need to cut the deficit in half, and then we need to cut it in half again, then we need to cut it in half and again, and we need to get rid of it. But the 3% target really is aligned with stabilizing the debt, so it's not growing faster than GDP. The definition of unsustainable is when your debt is growing faster than the economy, and we have to make sure we stop that as quickly as possible.
That is a great way to end it. Thank you for bringing that up. I truly believe that that's one of the things that hinders us here in Congress is trying to put perfect in the way of very good. Just like when we talked about zero-based budgeting, you ain't got to do it all at once. Do it over time, and I think you can achieve it.